Let's talk to Liberal Democrat Member of Parliament for Oxford West and Abingdon, is where they made the...
near Cameron's constituency as well, wasn't it?
Layla Moran. Layla, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm delighted that you're glued to the parliamentary BBC Parliament channel.
I am.
That's great news.
Yes. Yeah. And, well,
I love it.
You haven't been on yet that I've seen anyway.
I've done 2 motions. We did one on education yesterday, and I did the one on equal marriage the day before. So I've been on a couple.
Oh, well, that's a show. I've missed those both.
You watch them like Love Island, or it's like a soap opera almost, don't you? So you should leave them hanging till the next day.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's good.
Oh, have you finished now, Layla?
Oh, not at all, no. So we've nearly at the end of the month, but we've still got the leader speech tomorrow, which we're all really looking forward to. And meanwhile, there's, fringes and drinking and all sorts that goes on at things where we meet up with mates. So, it's been a really buoyant conference, I have to say. Really, really positive.
Good. You've managed not to sort of get too wasted, haven't you?
Not at all, actually. I've been a very, very good girl.
Good. Actually, talking about girls, that was an interesting point. I was watching some of the news clips today, and when Jo Swinson and others, and I don't think you were in the party that accompanied her from the hotel down to the conference centre. You know, they always do that film of the party leader coming down, completely surrounded by ladies.
Yeah. Absolutely, and then the reason I wasn't, I should say, is not I was in the conference centre, but it's because those are our next tranche of MPs. Those were all the parliamentary candidates waiting in the wings.
It's a bit sexist,
that
isn't
Liberal Democrat government. Well,
that's what I was thinking.
We're all about the gender balance, so I'll take that point.
How many? I mean, can a couple of sort of aging elderly hippies you and me ever get in as a member of Parliament anymore?
Absolutely right. No, of course you can. Of course.
Only for the Lib Dems, of course.
I delivered training today to a whole host of our next set of target C candidates, and there's plenty of that type of person represented in the group. Don't you worry.
Now, Jo Swinson has ruled out forming a coalition with either the Tories or Labour. I think I'm right in saying.
Absolutely. So particularly under Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn, because both are Brexiteers. We are the party of Stop Brexit.
Right.
And unless either of them decide to totally come on board with that message, we would essentially be saying one thing and doing another by propping them up. We're not in that business.
Okay, Layla, so if either of those two parties were to change leaders before the next election, would you then consider a coalition?
Do you really think that's going to happen?
I don't know. It just occurred to me. I have no idea, Layla.
Oh, I don't know. Well, honestly, look. Maybe. I don't know.
Could happen.
Not. Who knows? I mean, they'd also have to change their stance on Brexit as well.
But no one knows Corbyn's stance, do they?
No. That's a very good point.
Do we? Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
No. Okay. What about a coalition with the SNP?
Almost certainly not. And also, I doubt we'd get the numbers. Apart from anything else, the SNP are essentially nationalists. They are, wolves in sheep's clothing when it comes to things like Brexit, which is giving them a lot of attention. But in the end, what they really want is Scottish independence. And I just don't see us getting in this position where we end up delivering Indie Ref 2 in Scotland. That's just not going to happen.
Well, according to the polls, they're likely to get around 60 seats in Scotland.
Well, we'll see about that. We'll just have to see about that. I mean, the thing is, the polls are kind of all over the place right now. What we are aiming for, which will unsurprise you, is a Liberal Democrat majority government where we stop Brexit by revoking Article 50. That's what the conference has been all about. And I have to tell you, there is a huge amount of energy. It's our biggest conference ever, including when we were, in government and all the rest of it. This is the best conference we've ever had. This is a really, really on-the-up, energetic, buoyant party that has no limits on our ambition.
Do you think if there was another referendum tomorrow, the Remain group of people in this country would win?
I do, actually. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the big myths that's being peddled at the moment is that if you vote a deal through, or if you decide on no deal, whatever may be on that ballot paper, that you make Brexit stop. Because what I'm hearing, certainly in my area, is people just holding their heads in their hands, going, can't we talk about anything else? Can't we move on? Can't we get out this national embarrassment that's Brexit? And the way that we do that is by leaving. What they are being told by parties who want to do that is a lie. We're basically, if we score a football match, we are heading towards half-time. This is not the end. There is a political declaration still to come. You know, others have said if this were climbing Everest, all we're doing is getting to base camp. The big negotiation is yet to come. So if you really want to stop talking about Brexit, there is one way to do that, and that is to revoke Article 50 and remain in the European Union. I actually think in the cut and thrust of a referendum campaign, we would get that message across, and I think it would be rather popular.
Don't you think there'd be a lot of trouble if you suddenly decided to remain against the will of the people?
Well, it wouldn't be against the will of the people, would it? Because
it is currently, isn't it?
Yeah, but if they were voted to remain, it wouldn't be, would it?
Exactly.
In a general election.
Listen to what Layla's saying.
It's not going to happen, is it?
No, just listen to what she's saying. I'm sorry about this, Layla.
Yeah, but at the moment, the people have decided to leave.
At the moment, but everyone has the right to change their minds. And I keep coming across, and actually it's been really interesting, the new thing, well, there's been several new things, loads of new members and all the rest of it, but actually there's a huge tranche of members here who are wearing badges saying RemainerNow, who are very brave and standing up in fringes of Liberal Democrats saying, I voted Leave. I realise now that I've made a mistake. I now realise that we need to remain. I think there's a silent, huge constituency of people who feel that way too.
You know, I started out as a Remainer. I thought the whole idea of the referendum was stupid. We never needed to put ourselves in this situation, and everything else has become completely idiotic. And I've changed my mind, Layla. I think the European Union's become too big. I think it's become too unwieldy. I think it's become too dictatorial. And I thought the Luxembourg Prime Minister today made a complete idiot of himself. And people that I meet, if I go into the pub, and I live in what used to be a Remainer area, everybody now feels they've changed their mind and says, look, I don't care whether we get a deal or not. I just don't want to have anything else to do with them.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? That argument applies the other way too.
Yeah, I know.
If you change your mind from one way to another, then can you accept that other people have gone the other way?
Absolutely.
And so that's all we're asking for. Is
but the delay is down to the Remainers, isn't it?
What?
The 3-year delay is down to Remainers throwing spanners into them.
I will just point out that the people who actually stopped Theresa May's deal were people who were asking for a hard Brexit in the ERG. So, no, I don't accept that at all.
If there were, I saw you being interviewed. I'm not sure if it was you or Joe Swinson. Maybe you'll become the leader one day in the future.
She's just got started. What's wrong with you? Get that in.
Well, you know, it might be a career move in the right direction, don't you think, Layla?
Never mind. Anyway, move on.
Anyway, I thought I'd throw that in without her realising, and she'd give me an answer. Yeah, I think so. I see that she said, it wasn't you, she said that even if we leave the European Union and the Lib Dems don't become the party of government, they will continue to vote to leave. They will become basically the voice of people who, remain. They will become the voice. It's so simple. It's just two little words, leave and remain. They will become the voice of those people who wish to remain, and they will continue to campaign to leave. Isn't that a little anti-democratic when it's all been sorted? Remain.
Well, we should continue to be true to our values. And this is the difference between the Liberal Democrats and the Brexit Party. You know, we have values and a constitution. We are internationalists. We've always believed that the way to improve the future for Britain is to work with other countries, to be part of that European project. And all she's really saying is that we wouldn't suddenly change who we are as a party. It's up to voters at that point whether or not they want to vote for us. That's democracy.
While we're having this conversation, listeners are getting in touch, and a guy called Ray has just texted in, and he said, James, I have the perfect answer to Brexit, which I'm glad somebody has, because nobody has so far. He says, have a second referendum, but add the result to the first. That way all votes count, and leavers start with a lead. Remainers need to make up.
I like it, I like it.
Excuse me, up a difference. And that would possibly work.
He might have a point there, in so much as I've always believed that for something so, and we've seen this now, it's such a huge decision for a country to make. I've never really believed should have been decided on a very simple majority of just 50%. And you'll remember, perhaps, that Nigel Farage, before the election results, was saying that it should have been a 60-40, 55-45 split or something like that. You know, he may well have a point in that. I'm not sure that sort of adding it up makes sense because there will be a different, makeup of voters. But I think he may well have a point of, if there's another referendum, we need to look at how we conduct that, and maybe it should be done in a way that it genuinely has legitimacy. I completely agree with that. But the point is, the status quo is that we are in the European Union, and that leaving the European Union would have massive consequences to our economy. I think the status quo, as it is now, needs to count for something.
Okay. Are you embarrassed about Philip Lee?
No, actually. No, I'm not at all. One thing, however, I will say is to those members who have left the party, and I spoke with them on their first day of conference, and they have legitimate concerns about his voting records when he was in the Conservative Party. What I said to them is, first of all, he was a Tory at that point. I would love to think that, if he was a LibDem MP at that point, he would realise that those kinds of amendments, which are offensive to the community, frankly, you should never put them down. You need to speak to people who have real life experience of that kind of offence that you're causing. I would love to think that if he were a Lib Dem MP, he would have been talked out of doing that in the first place. But I also have spoken to Philip myself, and he is a Liberal, and he is not a homophobe. And what we're doing now is recognising that we didn't handle that well at the beginning. We've learned those lessons now, and, we're repairing that relationship. I really, really hope that those members will come back. And, they were making positive noises in that direction. We're learning from that.
Do you think the T-shirts that you wore, or some of your people wore at the European Parliament with the B word to Brexit were a good idea?
Yes. Well, apart from anything else, everyone's talking about it. And second of all, it's exactly our policy,
I would have used the word, but I promise not to.
I know, that's what. And you know what? What I will say to people is, at the very least, what the Liberal Democrats stand on this. We are absolutely clear. At a time when, you've got even Boris Johnson flipping all over the place. Does he want no deal? Does he want a deal? No one really knows where...
Well, he doesn't really know what doesn't want no deal.
He wants a deal.
Yeah.
Oh, he says a number. Boris Johnson says whatever suits Boris Johnson to keep him in number 10 at the time that he's asked it.
I mean, even Nigel Farage would like a deal.
Yeah.
Well, apparently, we'll see. But at least with the Liberal Democrats, you know where you stand. And one thing I will say is that then we can then, where we stand. But in a general election, if it comes, then move on to the other issues. And the thing is, the general election is going to be about more than just Brexit. We know that. We've just passed some really great education policy, really great policy on climate change, all of those things.
Yeah, but you've made it all about Brexit. That's what people will now be voting on for the Lib Dem, whether they're Remain or Leave. They won't think about anything else.
It's the government that's called the election twice. We stopped them because it was a trap.
Because you lose. You're only stopping us having our say. You're only stopping the general public having a vote.
No, not at all. And in fact, if there's any party right now, look at where we are in the polls. We think we're going to do really, really well out of the next.
But why not? Why not go?
That wants one, it's us. But you put national.
Why not go for the election, Layla? Because if you had gone for the election,
we will.
Yeah, but
if you're doing well in the polls, surely you want to get into government as quickly as you can.
No. So at the time, listen, all this comes down to the fact that I don't trust a word that comes out of Boris Johnson's mouth. He has already and has said a number of times that he might ignore the word Parliament. We passed a anti-no deal Brexit bill, and then he's already looking at ways of circumventing that. It's being heard in the courts, I think, tomorrow for prorogation, after he said that he would never prorogue. This is someone we cannot trust. As soon
it's nothing to do with him, it's the people that you can...
Let me finish. As soon as he gets and asks for that extension, and if he wants to come back, we'll support him.
You just want to embarrass him because you want to get past October 30th.
Hang on, let me just ask a question. If they come back with any deal at all...
I will support it.
You won't support it?
No, I'm not going to support Brexit. We are the anti-Brexit party.
So what,
we want to stop Brexit. I am not supporting Boris Johnson in his desire to take this country down a path that I don't agree with. I stood on that manifesto when I was elected in 2017. My constituents knew exactly what I stood for, and that's exactly what I'm going to do to them.
So, okay, if they come back with even a deal that everybody thinks is great and it'll please everybody, the Lib Dems still wouldn't vote for it.
No.
Even if it was better for Britain economically?
It's not better for... There is no...
No, but there might be a deal. You don't know what the deal is.
Yeah, but there is no deal that is better than the deal
free
that
trade
we've currently
deal.
got.
Well, hang on.
The IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, the OBR, anyone who looks at these things with any level of credibility, and I still believe in experts, I'm sorry, I think it's worth listening to them, no one is saying that the economy is going to do better with a deal and leaving the EU. The best deal we've got is the one we've currently got with the EU.
Why?
What we're fighting for is to protect it.
Okay. Why do you think the majority of people in this country voted to leave the European Union? And many, many people, I've talked to them over the last 3 years, many ordinary people, women, men, just want to leave. When you say, well, what sort of deal? I don't care, just want to leave. Why?
Well, I would put to them, how many of them, and I've had people in my own area come up to me and say, I was absolutely lied to. There were a number of people who absolutely believed that that £350 million for the NHS on the side of a bus was a believable figure. But
it's 250. Are they furious about 250?
It was 350 million pounds.
No, I know, but the actual reality is it's 250. So are those people not happy now with 250 million?
And that was never going to go to the NHS. And then you've got the lies that Michael Gove told about the people from Turkey coming in and stealing our jobs. You know, and that was what's been revealed by David Cameron today. He's exposed these people for what they are. I'm sorry. I think a lot of people were voting on...
But he didn't say it at the time. Maybe he should have done.
Didn't he say it'd be World War III or something?
Well, I'm not about to defend David Cameron. I actually genuinely think he is going to go down as one of the worst prime ministers our country has ever had.
Here's a good question for you, Layla. Who would you like to see in charge of the Conservative Party? Who would be a good leader of the Conservative Party?
You have asked me an impossible question.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have. Because the thing is, they're expelling anyone that I would have any respect for. The likes of Ken Clarke and Nick Stone and the likes...
Well, they're a bit old to be leaders now. What young, thrusting Tory? What about James Cleverly or Tom Tugendhat or...
Yeah.
Listen, you're asking the wrong person. I'm not a Conservative. I don't give a fig. If I wanted to be a Conservative, I'd have done that. I am interested in delivering Joe Swinson as the next Prime Minister of this country.
Okay, well, no, that's fair.
And I'm terribly sorry, I have to go, James.
Okay, well, listen, that's fine. I was going to ask you who you'd like to see as leader of the Labour Party, and then I was going to throw at you, apart from Joe, who would you like to see as leader of the Lib Dems? But there we are.
You're going down a rabbit hole. But
Labour,
it's lovely to talk to you.
Layla, thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your conference. We'll talk again. Layla Moran, the Liberal Democrat MP for Oxford, Western Abingdon.